Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I'm Dragonfly9078, and today I'm building Alucard from Hellsing Ultimate. Now, I had a hard time deciding how I wanted to build this one, so I actually built it twice, and the other one should be posted at about the same time. So be sure to check out my channel for that alternate build, as well as to vote for the next one, and hey, maybe check out my Patreon too, if you want. So what do we want from this build? Well, Alucard is the king of vampires, so we need a bunch of spooky vampire powers, like regeneration and attacking people with shadows. One of his favorite ways to attack with his shadows is to form them into a huge wolf-like creature to tear people to shreds. But when that doesn't work, or just when he doesn't want to, he can also just shoot them. Nice and simple. Plus, his bullets are blessed, so they're stronger against undead. Looking over at ability scores, I'll be using the standard point array. If you want to roll for stats, that's fine, just keep an eye on strength and charisma for multiclassing. Strength is number 1. Alucard is strong enough to rip another vampire's arm in half lengthwise with one hand. He's also unnaturally quick and uses guns, so dexterity will be 13. Constitution's only 10. He's actually not that hard to kill, especially since he doesn't tend to dodge much. The trick is getting him to stay dead. We'll dump intelligence, mostly because it's the easiest stat to dump. Alucard isn't dumb, we just need other things more. Wisdom will be 12. Vampires tend to have pretty good senses, and Alucard is no exception. And we'll finish up with a 14 in Charisma, since Alucard is both hilarious and terrifying. Now there's a couple of vampire races in D&D, but the best is Dampier, so that's what we'll use. That boosts our Constitution by 2 and our Strength by 1. Gives us a 35-foot walking speed and 60 feet of dark vision. We also don't need to breathe, and thanks to our ancestral legacy, we get 2 free skills. I'll say Arcana and Intimidation. One thing Dampier have over other vampire races is Spider Climb, giving us a climbing speed equal to our walking speed. Then at 3rd level, letting us walk on walls without using our hands. And since we're a vampire, we have a Vampiric Bite, a melee weapon attack that deals 1d4 piercing damage and uses our constitution for its attack and damage rolls. We get advantage on the attack if we have less than half of our total HP left, and a number of times per day equal to our proficiency. We can empower ourselves when we bite a creature that isn't a construct or undead, adding the amount of piercing damage we dealt to our next attack or ability check, or healing ourselves for the same amount. Alucard is a monster in service for the Hellsing organization, sent to hunt down and assassinate other monsters, so we're going to make him a Dimir operative. That'll give us proficiency in Deception and Stealth, and add a bunch of Dimir spells to the list of any spellcasting classes we take. So, in his first life, Alucard was Vlad Tepes, or Vlad the Impaler, a religious zealot who committed atrocities in the name of defending his homeland from invaders. So we'll make him a Paladin. That gives us 2 Paladin skills, I'll say Athletics and Religion. And since we're starting as a Paladin and not multiclassing into it later, we get heavy armor proficiencies for when we go Restraint level 0 and turn back into our original Vlad form, since that form very clearly wears full plate armor. We get a Divine Sense, allowing us to sense the location of Celestials, Fiends, and Undead within 60 feet as an action, a number of times per day equal to 1 plus our Charisma modifier. We can also sense things and places that have been blessed or desecrated, so we can use this to find the vampires that we're sent to kill, and also to tell that Anderson is carrying blessed bayonets. The first time at least. Whenever we see him later, that's probably just a safe assumption. Paladins also get Lay on Hands to give ourselves a healing factor. We have a pool of points equal to 5 times our Paladin level that refreshes on a long rest. As an action, we can touch a creature, or ourself, and expend points to heal them for that amount, or we can spend 5 points to cure them of a disease or poison. 2nd level Paladins get a fighting style, and thanks to the Unearthed Arcana, we have access to unarmed fighting, making our unarmed strikes deal 1d6 damage, or 1d8 if both of our hands are free, and letting us deal a d4 each turn to a creature we have grappled. Bear in mind that this doesn't affect our bite attack, since that's classified as a simple melee weapon. Plus, the empowering effect needs us to deal piercing damage with it, so the bludgeoning won't work anyway. On a related note, we get Divine Smite here, which lets us burn spell slots when we hit with a melee weapon attack to deal extra radiant damage. 2d8 for a 1st level slot, and increasing by 1d8 for each higher level slot, to a max of 5d8, plus an extra d8 if we're hitting a fiend or undead. We can absolutely use this on our bite, but since the Empower specifies the piercing damage, we don't include any extra radiant damage in that. It also doesn't work with bullets, though we could certainly just smack someone with the pistols themselves. Shackle and Kasul are heavy enough, plus, they're probably blessed too. For a way to actually get blessed bullets, we need to turn to Paladin spells, like Divine Favor, which adds a d4 of radiant damage to any weapon attacks we hit with for up to a minute. We can pick up the full complement of detection spells, detect magic, poison and disease, and evil and good, along with protection from evil and good to resist the powers and attacks of other vampires. Cure Wounds can heal us once we run out of Lay on Hands, and we can take Disguise Self and Sleep from the Dimir operative list. For our Oath at 3rd level, after being tortured and executed, Alucard turned away from the god who he felt had betrayed him, becoming a vampire in the process, so we'll go Oathbreaker. Oathbreakers get 2 spells that are always prepared. Hellish Rebuke forces a dexterity save on a creature that hits us, dealing 2d10 fire damage on a fail, and Inflict Wounds tears at an adjacent enemy with shadows, dealing 3d10 necrotic damage on a hit. We can channel our divinity once per rest, choosing between 2 options. Control Undead forces a wisdom save on an undead within 30 feet, forcing them to obey us for a full day on a fail. And a Dreadful Aspect unleashes our Malice, forcing a wisdom save on all creatures within 30 feet, frightening them for up to a minute on a fail. We're also immune to all diseases. Turns out it's hard to get sick when you can just turn into a living mass of shadows. Who knew? At 4th level, we'll pick up the Gunner feat, rounding off our dexterity to 14 and giving us proficiency with firearms. They do count as martial weapons, so an argument could be made that we already had proficiency with them, but some DMs will say, no, they're firearms, you have to get a separate proficiency since, it exists. We can also ignore the loading property to give our guns unlimited ammo, and we no longer have disadvantage on ranged attacks from being within 5 feet of an enemy. 5th level paladins get extra attack to attack twice in a turn, as well as 2nd level spells. Aid gives us extra tankiness with an increase to our max HP. Lesser Restoration can end harmful effects on ourselves, and Branding Smite gives us one especially holy bullet, making the next weapon attack we hit with deal an extra 2d6 radiant damage. The creature we hit also glows, so we can't become invisible, so if we ever have to shoot a ghost, we are set. Our Oathbreaker spells at this level let us shroud the battlefield in darkness and turn enemies against each other with Crown of Madness, forcing a creature to make a wisdom save. On a fail, they have to use their action each turn to attack a creature of our choice that they can reach. We can also grab Detect Thoughts, one of the main spells I wanted from the Dimir operative list, since we can read the minds of the people we consume, and Pass Without Trace envelops us in shadows, adding 10 to our stealth checks. At 6th level, we get our Annoying Invulnerability with Aura of Protection, adding our Charisma modifier to any saves that we or an ally within 10 feet of us makes. Quick note about this, it does affect allies' death saves, but it generally does not affect ours, because we can only give the bonus if we ourselves are conscious. Similarly, our Aura of Hate at 7th level adds our Charisma modifier to our melee weapon damage, as well as that of Fiends and Undead within 10 feet. This doesn't do much for Integra or Walter, but hey, at least Police Girl gets the buff. Plus, since this isn't type damage and just increases the damage dealt, it actually does work with the empowering function of our Vampiric Bite. With those in mind, I could definitely see increasing our Charisma with our ASI at 8th level, but I actually want to boost Constitution. Our HP is not as high as I would like, and we have a couple of concentration spells I want to hold on to. 9th level brings us 3rd level spells like Animate Dead, which raises a corpse as a ghoul under our control, and Spirit Shroud, which calls up a host of the dead spirits under our command. They crowd around us, dealing an extra 1d8 of our choice of necrotic, radiant, or cold damage when we hit a creature within 10 feet. Any creature we deal that damage to can't heal until our next turn, and the spirits clutch at any creature who starts its turn within 10 feet of us, reducing their speed by 10 feet for a turn. Gaseous Form off the Dimir list lets us turn into Mist, a pretty classic vampire move, and Crusader's Mantle is Divine Favor but turned into a party buff, blessing the bullets of us and any allies within 30 feet, so they all deal an extra 1d4 radiant damage. Jumping over for a quick 1-level dip into Warlock, the Undead Patron releases one of our Restraints, giving us a Form of Dread. We can transform as a bonus action a number of times per day equal to our proficiency, giving us 1d10 plus our Warlock level temporary HP, making us immune to being frightened, and letting one of our attacks each turn frighten a creature if they fail a wisdom save. For Warlock spells, we get 2 cantrips and 2 first level spells. I like Chill Touch, a ranged spell attack that deals up to 4d8 necrotic damage on a hit, stops healing for a turn, and gives undead disadvantage to attack us, and Toll the Dead, a wisdom save that deals up to 4d8 necrotic on a fail, that goes up to 4d12 necrotic damage if the target isn't at max HP. For first level spells, Arms of Hadar is the main reason I wanted to dip into Warlock in the first place. We lash out with our shadows, forcing a strength save on all creatures within 10 feet. If they fail, they take 2d6 necrotic damage and can't take reactions for a turn, half damage on a success. And since we can take another spell, we'll pick up Expeditious Retreat, to dash with our bonus action for that vampire fastness. Next we'll move on to Sorcerer, specifically Shadow Sorcerer. Our dark vision gets better, extending out to 120 feet. We also have the Strength of the Grave. Once per day, if we'd be reduced to 0 HP, we can make a Charisma save to drop to 1 HP instead. The DC for the save is 5 plus the damage we took, but we can't try the save if the damage was radiant or from a critical hit. Sorcerers get a bunch of cantrips at first level. We'll take Mage Hand, Prestidigitation, Minor Illusion, and Friends for a bit of hypnosis to give us advantage on charisma checks against a creature, though afterwards they become hostile to us. For leveled spells, Charm Person is better hypnosis that charms a creature who fails a wisdom save for an hour, and Jump triples our jump distance for more of that otherworldly mobility. Second level sorcerers have a Font of Magic, a pool of points that they can trade for spell slots, and vice versa. We get a number per day equal to our sorcerer level, and we can't have more than our sorcerer level at any given time. There's also Magic Missile, calling up Rip Van Winkle to fire her magic bullets, 3 shots that deal 1d4 plus 1 force damage and are guaranteed to hit. At 3rd level, our Eyes of the Dark teaches us the Darkness spell, though we did already have it from being an Oathbreaker, and more importantly, lets us cast it by spending 2 sorcery points instead of a spell slot. When we cast it this way, we can even see through it, so we can attack anyone in the darkness without any trouble. We can also use sorcery points to enhance our spells with meta magic. Subtle Spell uses 1 point to cast a spell without verbal or somatic components, manifesting the effect through the sheer force of our will. An Empowered Spell helps make up for our lower than preferred save DC by spending 3 points to give a creature disadvantage on their save against the spell. Our first 2nd level spell is Misty Step, a quick 30-foot teleportation. Then our second is another one of our trapped souls, this time Alhambra, with Spray of Cards, a flurry of magic playing cards that either blinds creatures in a 15-foot cone who fail a wisdom save, or slices up creatures in a 15-foot cone for 2d10 force damage on a failed dexterity save, half on a success. We also get an ASI here, so we'll bump our strength to 18. Alucard is absurdly strong, so I'd like to cap strength off by the end of the build. 5th level sorcerers get 3rd level spells, and of course we have to take Vampiric Touch. Every turn for up to a minute we can make a melee spell attack, dealing 3d6 necrotic damage and healing ourselves for half that amount on a hit. But I did promise you we would get a dog, and we can do that at the 6th level of Shadow Sorcerer. The Hound of Ill Omen is a shadowy direwolf that we can summon by spending 3 sorcery points as a bonus action to harass a specific creature. The Hound is medium instead of large, gets temporary HP equal to half our sorcerer level, and it can move through solid objects, though it does take 5 force damage if it ends its turn inside something. It always knows where its target is, and on its turn it moves directly towards its target, then attacks if it's close enough. And if that wasn't enough, as long as it's next to its target, that creature has disadvantage on saves against our spells. Now we could take another 3rd level spell here, but I actually want one more 2nd level one, Wither and Bloom. That forces creatures of our choice in a 10-foot sphere around a point we choose to make a Constitution save, taking 2d6 necrotic damage on a fail, half on a success. Then, one creature in that area can spend a hit die to heal for that amount plus our Charisma modifier. Keep in mind that since the damage is to creatures of our choice, we can center it on our Hound so the Hound's target has disadvantage, then the Hound doesn't take damage and heals instead. Of course, we can also center it on ourself, and for the best hit die to heal with, we'll finish off the build as a Barbarian. As stylish as our fancy red coat is, it isn't technically armor, so our unarmored defense will make our AC 10 plus our dexterity and constitution modifiers. And we can enter a Blood Rage as a bonus action, halving any bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage we take, as well as giving us advantage on strength checks and saves, along with adding 2 extra damage to our strength-based melee attacks, like, say, our unarmed strikes. There's also Reckless Attack, aka Alucard's default strategy, attacking without care for taking attacks in return. We can choose to attack recklessly each turn, giving us advantage on strength-based melee attacks for that turn, but giving all attacks against us advantage in return. Bear in mind that this, as well as the extra damage from Rage, do not apply to our Vampiric Bite, because that works off of our Constitution, not our Strength. To balance out the Reckless Attack, we do have a Danger Sense that gives us advantage on dexterity saves against effects we can see, like spells and traps. So we can take the hits that won't do much to us and leap away from the heavier ones. Going back to our Vlad the Impaler roots at 3rd level, we become a Zealot. With our Divine Fury, the first creature we hit with a weapon attack every turn while we're raging takes 1d6 plus half of our Barbarian level in either Radiant or Necrotic damage, and we do have to choose when we take the feature. Either one works, but I'm gonna say Radiant, because I want to still have Holy Bullets while raging, even though we can't cast or concentrate on spells. We're also a Warrior of the Gods, meaning that if we ever do die, a spell to resurrect us doesn't need any material components. Just splatter some blood near our corpse and we'll be good to go. Our capstone is the 4th level of Barbarian, and we'll finally cap off that strength modifier with one last ASI, so we can rip people apart with our bare hands. Or teeth. Anything, really. Now that the build is complete, the question becomes, how good is it? Well, we are incredibly hard to kill. We're sitting around 150 HP depending on how you roll, with a ton of spells that can heal us, resistances from raging, 45 points worth of lay on hands, and our bite which can heal us. Plus, the first time we die, we can make a save to not die instead, and if that doesn't work, it's super cheap to bring us back to life. If that wasn't enough, our saves are pretty good across the board. We're proficient in Wisdom and Charisma, have advantage or can get advantage on strength and dexterity, and have a blanket +2 to all of them, so that save to stop us from dying is made with a +10 modifier. I also appreciate that even when we rage, there's a large chunk of our abilities that we can still use, defying the normal Barbarian spellcaster multiclassing disadvantage. Lay on Hands, Hound of Ill Omen, Form of Dread, Divine Smite, all of them work while we're raging. On the other hand, our big weakness is Intelligence. We have a -1 modifier, so even with our Aura of Protection, that's still only a +1 to our saves, meaning we're easy prey to psychic damage, or worse, Feeble Mind. On a similar note, we're real good at hand-to-hand with our cap strength and unarmed strikes, but we're much weaker at range, with 14s in dexterity and charisma. The charisma hurts even more, since that also means our spell save DC at 20th level is only 16. And finally, this version of Alucard I think is the more flavorful of the two I came up with, which is why I decided to make this the official video for it. But I think it's actually easier to kill than the other one, and that's Alucard's biggest hallmark, in my mind at least.
Luke Valentine. It's obvious that your powers are beyond even the highest category of vampire. Releasing Control Alt Restriction Systems 3, 2, 1. Approval of Situation A recognized, commencing the Cromwell invocation. Ability restrictions lifted for limited use until the enemy has been rendered silent.
Thank you for watching, friends. I hope you enjoyed the build. Head on over to my community tab if you want to vote in the poll for the next character. This week is between the Sniper from Team Fortress 2, Mark Watney, the titular character from The Martian, Magilu from Tales of Berseria, and of course our runner-up from last time, Danny Ocean of Ocean's 11. If you have any feedback or suggestions for characters you'd like to see me build, please leave them in the comments below and they could show up in a future poll. Leave a like or subscribe if you want to see more, and if you want to support what I'm doing here, you can check the description for the link to my Patreon, for access to the Discord channel, early access to future builds, and exclusive Patreon content. Thanks again for watching, I will see y'all later.